We're going to be talking about something very important, and that's potential. You must see value in yourself to add value to yourself. You have myself, Jacques St. Fleur, and my co-host, Matt Lowe. How you doing out there, bud?
Yo, what's up, man? I am good. It's a busy week. Just a quick reminder to everybody that's tuning in, what Breakthrough Live is Jacques and I coming together, wanted to share value with those that want to hear it. We are both Maxwell leadership speaker, trainers, and coaches. We train in the corporate setting. We train with small businesses, and both of us are owners of businesses and build teams. And so we want to be able to, on a weekly basis, just kind of be able to pour into our communities and share with our friends and our family and those of you that find value in these words, principles and modalities and the leadership components that many of us know but forget about, that gets lost in the hustle and bustle. And so we kind of want to use Jacques and I were doing these calls together, and we're like, we're always talking about this with our friends and our families. Like, maybe we just start hosting these live, and they're just open time. So if you're tuning in live and you have a question and something that we talk about spawns an idea or a concept or you just want to ask something, feel free to just comment in the chat box. But our goal is nothing more than just to be able to share value in things that have helped both Jacques and I grow our teams and do what we do in the entrepreneurial and the team building space, and also what we do in the Maxwell space. And so, yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about potential, kind of the law in the mirror a little bit, as well. Like in order to really want to add value into myself, I have to first be able to look in the mirror and see myself as valuable and worth prioritizing self-care as something that takes top priority, right? We were just having this conversation before we went live.
It's the truth. It's funny when I hear potential. I remember hearing this story that was so basic, but it helped me to really kind of gather my thoughts. And I think to myself, when I was a kid, my parents didn't have money like that. So in junior high, we would get most of our sneakers at Payless, and I remember the first time I got a pair of Filas. The Filas were, for me, like the first brand that I was able to put on my feet. So I treated those Fila shoes so much different than the Payless shoes. The Payless shoes, I would leave them outside. It would get rained on. A dog would take it. Like, it was just my everyday streetwear shoe. But those Filas, every time I took them off, I would scrub them. I would put them back in the box, make sure the tissue paper is covering it up, and I would put it carefully in my closet.
Right.
I started to understand potential. I started to ask myself, how do I treat myself?
Yeah.
How much do I respect myself? Am I beating myself up and just living with my emotions out in the rain, being soaked on? Or do I value myself enough to take care of myself, prepare myself, maintain myself, and protect myself? Potential for me is like high-end shoes. I will not leave those out in a box, but we have to respect ourselves at that level.
Real quick question. Did you also wear Jinko jeans?
I definitely did do Jinko jeans.
Oh, bro, you had me at Fila, so I'm like, all right.
And it's crazy because those Jinko style jeans are now back in play.
Right? Everything comes back around, man. 15, 25 years, that like full window of like era. I think we're going to see like neon pants again and parachute pants at some point. I hope not. Hopefully those have been laid to rest. But man, potential.
Do you move with the trend?
What's that?
Do you move with those trends?
Sometimes, but I'm bare feet all the time. I don't wear shoes a lot. Like, I just do my own thing too. So, but yeah, no, man, it's, potential is an interesting position. And for me, it was one of my, I think, earlier blind spots. And I say, I think, because I don't know if it was like necessarily like the main blind spot or maybe like the byproduct of one of my blind spots. And that was just like, I had achieved success from a physical standpoint, but hadn't really conquered my, like the mental side of myself. Right. And you hear me talk all the time about mind, body, spirit, and having that trinity working together, that trifecta working together. Because that pillar, that triangle, is something that creates extreme strength. And so it gives you something very stable to build on top of, right? And whatever that is for you, you and I have our faith in Jesus and what we do, and then we have our physical components to our lives that is important to us. Yours is basketball, some weight training. Mine is definitely not basketball, because I absolutely have horrible dribbling skills. But mine is, strength training, and mine has the components that what Amy and I do. And that's that element that we as individuals have to be able to look in the mirror and realize that our lives change seasonally.
Yeah.
At least mine does. I've yet to notice anybody else's that doesn't, but I've noticed a lot of people that don't realize that their lives change seasonally.
Yeah.
And so they go into different seasons with the same schedule or the same, time blocks in one season as they do in the other. And they fail to make those adjustments season to season, month to month, whatever it is, to adjust, right? And we were just having this conversation where we had to go back to night training in the PM for a multitude of reasons, right? For me, it helps me decompress and de-stress because I'm in a high stress environment, a lot of the time, and not a bad stress, but even good stress, as we said, is still stress. And so I like to be able to just decompress my body. So I wanted to be able to sit in the sauna, in the evenings. And so we went back to PM training, which just readjusted how we prep our food on the weekends and when we prep and all of those things. But when you have the levers in play, it's a lot easier to go, okay, pull these down and push these up. It's figuring out what those levers are in many of our lives. And for mine, especially, not having them clarified and not having clear understanding of what those levers were that were running my life and running my marriage and my relationships and all of those different pieces, and having them tuned to the right area. It doesn't make a pretty sound when the piano's not tuned right.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Right?
Let me ask you, what are your some of your biggest or best practices around retuning yourself? Sometimes you don't have a lot of time. How do you retune yourself?
Yeah, I think it's, you hear me talk about our 6-step performance system all the time, right? And that 6th step is the 3 R's: review, refine, repeat. I talk about it all the time. I preach on it, I teach on it, speak on it, and it's something that's pivotal, not only in my own daily routine, but it's something that I try and instill in everybody that's around me. And that is constantly be reviewing and refining and repeating your processes, how you're using your time, whether that's on an hourly basis, on a project basis, on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Figure out what those refinement days are or times are, and they can be quick. They don't have to be massive meetings. I hate long meetings. I want to be able to get in. I don't want to talk about problems. You and I have talked about this.
Yeah, not at all.
I need to know the problem and we need to understand the problem, but I'm not going to dwell on the problem because we're solution-oriented people. Nothing happens if all we do is focus on the problem. I want to hear it. I want to understand it. And I want to have as much detail as possible and immediately go right into solutions. Right?
Yeah. Hey, and
so
go ahead.
No, go for it, brother.
No, I was gonna say that's something that I can appreciate about the military. I didn't know or understand it at the time, but you have thousands of kids going to boot camp. And the military has you for a 4-year contract, 3-year contract, 5-year contract. Just like any business, they need to get the most out of you. They can't give you a year of you sitting in your sorrows. You talking about you're not good enough. You go straight into boot camp. I remember when I went to boot camp, they said you can't bring anything to boot camp. So I thought maybe like a sandwich bag full of stuff would be small enough. I had like my little Bible that my parents gave me. I had this chain that my dad gave me. And I was thinking to myself, this is all I'm going to have for the next, 8-9 weeks. And I remember when I got there, they said, no, that has to go home. Even my little Bible, you need to take everything. They stripped you of everything. As soon as you got there, you go into this room. They give you your sweats. They call them Smurfs because they were their blue sweatpants and sweat tops. And you pack all your stuff back. My parents already had all my crap back in a couple of days.
Wow.
So when I tell you, my mom was bawling, thinking, man, they done taken my son. But as I went through boot camp, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be graduating high school, only 2 weeks from graduating high school, to be waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, to be eating first thing, running first thing, in the classroom first thing in the morning, that type of discipline, everybody was getting funneled through this process. Some people don't make it, some people will get kicked out of boot camp, but
Yeah,
essentially within 2 to 3 months, they've stripped the old you and they've been able to recreate the foundation for the new you. So those type of organizations, those systems, they understand your potential, but they also understand that if they leave it up to you, you'll never find your own potential.
for sure.
So that's something I really appreciate with the military and boot camp.
Well, isn't that so important to talk about, right? And we've talked about it because it made the biggest transition in both of our lives, right? From a relationship standpoint to a performance standpoint to our executive standpoints, right? Like, and that is to you need to have that head coach, somebody that believes in your full potential, that understands what you're fully capable of. Like, I know but what's in there, but it always helps take somebody else to push me beyond those red lines. And I can push myself really hard, but I promise you, a team of people can push even harder. And that's where it's critically important to make sure you know who your team is that's around you, right? And we call it our eight, and it's like, who are those eight people that are going to carry your casket? Who are the eight people that you can lean on? And we've talked about that circle gets smaller, but it gets tighter. And it's not that like you're pushing people out, man. There's only so much room in our lives, right?
Yeah.
When you try to be the yes ma'ams, you accomplish and achieve nothing. And you become this wishy-washy individual. And so it's like, it's not that I don't want to, it's like my health, my relationship, my time with my wife is critical. Yes, we work together, but that's not just because we work together doesn't mean that that's like our husband and wife time. Like we are co-workers when we're working together,
That
and
doesn't
so
count as quality time.
what's that?
That doesn't count as quality time.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that comes with its own challenges, but like it also brings out a whole different level of the potential that both of us have in our marriage and how we can drive each other and strive to push each other. And because we both innately are like those athletes, right? And we strive on that. Like our marriage thrives on us both pushing the other person to their capacity because we're open with each other about what our personal goals are. Amy knows what I want to achieve, and she will hold me accountable to it. If she sees me cheating, if she sees me slipping up, if she sees me, falling short of what I've set for my goal, she goes, yo. And I do the same thing for her. And so we've got to set those rules because it's like, oh man, what happens when I'm like, oh, I have that sugar craving and I'm like, I'm going to grab it. And she's like, yo, you can't eat that. And I'm like, oh, I can't get mad at her. But she's just helping me stay at that standard that I want for myself, And so it's the same thing goes for personal growth. Are we being intentional about making sure on our drive to work and our drive home that we're using it as a rolling university, for us to get in that learning time, whether that's listening to a good podcast or, studying up on hormones or diets or training or performance trends or, new research that's coming out on biohacking, and all. I love this stuff, like that. And so that's constantly just the state that we live in.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always that way.
Yeah. Hey, well,
right?
You have a partner that matches you for sure. Me and Avery are a perfect match because even after we eat dinner, I'm like, man, I sure could have a snack. And I always pause for a quick couple of seconds to see if she's going to approve it or not approve it. And 9 out of 10 times, she's like, I got the perfect idea. I'm like, man, we're about to go be fat together. That's what we're about to go do.
Hey, don't get me wrong. We have those seasons, we have those nights, and we have those meals, and that's just like where we want to be able to have as well is just, again, finding that balance, right, of those levers where it's like, okay, how can I live at this highest level of performance from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint, feel also like I've got my pedestal equally strong on a spiritual standpoint, not just individually, but my relationship with my wife and our relationship, with Christ and how strong that is. And then where we're going with our teams and where we're going with our businesses and where I'm going with consulting clients. There's a lot that's constantly going on, right? And so it's imperative. It's critical to make sure that I understand where that red line is, where I've got to constantly be reviewing what's going on, how are things working, what systems are working. And right now I'm at that like point of contention where, again, I feel like there's animosity happening in multiple different areas. And so again, my job's to fix that, find a solution. I'm not going to get overly emotional about anything. It's just decisions. It's making decisions. Look at the problem, find a solution. Look at the problem, find a solution. And so that's where we're at right now. It just happens to be that a lot of different things are happening in different components. And so a lot of them are having this point of contention, which then again starts to become very heavy as a weight to carry, being the person that has to lead the decision making in those components, right? Even from a personal standpoint, and things that Amy and I are working on. And so it's like juggling all of that and making sure that, again, we still leave time for our marriage and leave time for intimacy and leave time for church and for volunteering. That's super important for us, and it's taken us 13 years to try and figure out. And I'd be lying to say we have. Right?
I was about to say, we could start a whole new club just on husbands alone trying to figure life out.
Yeah. You know what I would title it? Falling Short.
That's the truth.
But bro,
and the key thing out of what you said is really nobody can consistently outperform their self-image. If you don't see your own potential, if you don't know what you're good at, you can't fake the funk. You can only fake the funk for so long before you're exposed. And most of those people have that fear of, what's the word I'm looking for? Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're good at, you're not sharpening those skills. Of course, at some point you're going to say, I'm not good enough for that. So you can't outperform your self-image. You got to put in the work.
Absolutely. Well, and we live in a world, right, that has glorified perfection, and I'm saying that in quotes for anybody that's listening and not watching us. Where it's just like there is no such thing as perfection, right? Yeah. But we've been programmed into believing that some other person in another part of the country or world actually can have power and dominion over my own self-worth and thought by words that they type on a keyboard and send to me, right? And then somewhere along the way, we've allowed that to be a tsunami that has literally taken over our culture.
Yeah.
And from all walks of life at every single age bracket, we have now started to compare every single element of our lives all the way down to the shoes we wear and the vacations we take as, well, I wish I had that. And all we're subconsciously programming is, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. And we don't even realize that that's what we're doing until we look at the state of where our nation is. I mean, dude, we are pharmaceutical, like, kingpins of the world. We are the largest drug dealers in the world, by far, and it's insane, and we're the most clinically depressed and most clinically anxiety ridden and all of these different things. And yet it's like, wait a second, we live in America. I thought we had everything at our fingertips.
Yes.
You know what we're also number one at? Consumerism of nearly every single product on planet Earth. We consume almost the most of, and so it's like we constantly consume to fill this void and we don't focus on the inner self work of the person. And truthfully, what I think drives that, bro, is purpose. Like, what is your purpose? Because I believe when you understand clarity of purpose, it gives you potential.
Yes.
Right. It reinvigorates that potential. That potential's there, but having a clearly defined and understood purpose for what I'm living my life for, that gives me breadth and depth to every morning when I wake up. Like, I'm excited to go to work. Like, I'm pumped up to get back into the office and work on new protocols and look at how we're going to take the business forward and how do we add more value to our members and how do I get to more speaking gigs and how do I be able to influence and give this value to more people? Because as you know, it's that ripple effect, that compound effect, dude. Once you taste it, you're like, holy moly, I just inspired and influenced a bunch of people. It's not for everybody, man. Sometimes, you know this, our message pisses some people off,
It
you
does.
know, and it's like, hey, if it catches people in the wrong season of their life, you may
Yeah,
not like
not a
the
good
message.
look. Which is true. I mean, especially in sales. I mean, I tell
Oh, yeah.
my sales team all the time, listen, it's never personal. It's just you have to find a way to stick to the basics. Don't be so
Yeah.
scared to pick up the phone. You have to understand you're gonna get a 90% no's. And if you get 10% of your calls go through, that is a successful salesperson. But once again,
Yeah.
if you don't understand what you do well, you'll never be successful in any role. But keep
Yeah.
in mind, it's just making calls. 50 to 70 calls. If you stick to 50 to 70, this is for any sales person that's out there. If you're sticking to your 50 to 70 calls a day, by the time you get to week 4, you've mastered your sales pitch. What I notice is I do teach backs on my team where once a week they have to sell us on it. So we can kind of
Nice.
hear what the talk track
Yeah.
sounds like. With that pressure of knowing that you need to speak with your team, you'll be surprised how fast people really sharpen up. But if you were to ask people, let's say you have a new salesperson at the end of the year, you ask them, are you making your calls? Why do you feel like your sales funnel is light? I guarantee you they're not making the 50 to 70 calls. Because the first
Yep.
time you jump on a call and they're stuttering all the way through, like, there's no way you've been making 50 calls a day for the last year and you're still stuttering when you get to the decision maker.
Yeah.
So once again, we have to know our potential and stick to it. If you don't
When it
believe
goes
in
to
yourself,
like,
you never try.
well, and like we just said, man, you got to understand that like the only way to success is massive failure, like failing
Yeah.
over and 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 over. So get it, just understand that, get used to that. And the quicker that you understand that, like, look, people are going to mock you. People are going to make fun of you. People are going to say, what are you doing? You've got your priorities wrong. Like all these different things. As long as you are clear with what your purpose is and the potential that you have inside of you to become the person required to reach that
Yes.
purpose and achieve that goal and build that legacy, whatever it is that you're going after to achieve, like then that's what it is.
Yeah. Very
Right.
true.
But get clear on that purpose, because I think for most people, like we get caught up and I can speak this purely for myself, but I know this is true for many just based on the conversations that we have on a regular basis, and you and I have had this conversation that it's like when you don't have a clearly defined purpose, it's hard to feel valuable to the world and to the community and to what you have to offer. And when you don't feel valuable, you feel erased. You have the ability to be erased, right? You can be replaced really quick. And when we all want to be valuable, and we think that is just this mega thing that I have to do, like I got to be famous to be valuable. And it's like, no, you don't. To be valuable is to add value to somebody next to you, behind you, in front of you.
It's
Teach
true.
somebody something that you don't know. That's adding value to somebody's life. It could be crocheting. It could be basket weaving. It could be how to shovel snow. It could be all these different components. But it's like when we give, especially of our time and of our energy, to somebody else and helping them with their problems,
Yeah.
it's natural for that to raise our serotonin levels of doing a good deed and feeling good about ourselves and going, wow, that made me feel really great. But we just don't do it as a society as much anymore for whatever reason. We're cooped up by ourselves, and we live on our phones. And again, just thumbing through, looking at all these grandiose lifestyles, of influencers that are literally getting paid to do this stuff,
Yeah.
for a living. And it's like, we work, we build companies, we do these things. And it's like, yeah, but it's just, it comes down to this one thing. When I look in the mirror, do I see the potential in myself to go, look, I'm not there yet. And I'm never going to be there, because personal growth is, I'm never done growing.
Yeah.
When I'm 80, I'm still going to be learning new things because the world is constantly evolving. So as long as I stay in the perpetual state of constant and never ending self-betterment, and then applying every single day the newness of what I'm learning back to my team and my community and my family and my marriage and my friends, that gives me purpose, because I know that I'm putting something intentionally back into the people around me that will reap a reward if they apply it into their lives.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. You can hear the information, but if you don't apply it, it's never going to to land for you. I still
Yeah.
remember the first time I remember working the rat race, had my first son, trying to go to school full time on my 2 days off, going to work full time, trying to manage a relationship and study. It was overwhelming. And I remember somebody breaking down the 30% principle. And it said, you need to break down your time into threes. 30% of your time, 33% of your time, hanging out with those who are ahead of you so that you can be clear with your direction. You want to spend 33% of your time hanging out with those beneath you because it's a cycle. You need to learn and be able to give. And then 33% of the people around you so you can kind of gauge how you're moving. So during that rat race, I'm thinking to myself, I don't have time for the people beneath me. I'm at the bottom. I need help. But that's that victim mindset. I need help. I'm
Oh,
struggling,
for sure.
until they took my job away from me. They took my job away from me, and guess what? Now I've got 4 months to find a new job. And then guess
Oh,
what I started to do? I remember at that time saying, I do I feel like there's nobody beneath me? Do I really feel that? I was like, I can go start at high school. High school, I've finished high school. You can mentor someone. You can help some group. So I remember started going into high schools now to be a part of this program. And once again, I put my pity fest on the kids. Oh, these were the challenges. My parents didn't have the resources. First generation, all these pity stories. And I made one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made in the education system. After I was one of the panelists, I heard the other panelists who had even worse than me. And I was like, now, kids, raise your hands if you feel like you don't have more potential or less or more going for you than these panels. Listen, there were crickets. Like most of the kids were like, we're going through a lot more than you guys are going through. So when I did that whole exercise, this is a sure shot. Everybody raise your hand.
It's like that fell short.
Crickets. And then guess what? After I got to shut up, the panelists shut up. We got to hear what these kids were going through.
Yeah, right.
And for the first time, I had my reality check. Like I'm complaining about the first world problems that I have. One kid was talking about he moved from Dominican Republic to the United States. He moved after his house was vandalized, killed his parents, and the kids had to move to the United States with the aunties.
Wow.
What? Here I am talking about I had to go the hard way. Every kid that spoke, I just buried myself even more and then even more and even more. And that's why I have that soft space for youth. Because once again, I will never put my foot in my mouth that way again. We all come from our own separate backgrounds. We all have potential. We just need mentors to help us see that potential.
When a lot of times, as you and I both said, right, like we both were ambitious in trying to find that potential on our own, and it wasn't until we each in our different paths hired professional coaches to come in and help us pull that potential out of us. And I'm like, my God, it was like, why did I try this for so many years on my own, thinking I could go start my own business by myself and do these things just by reading some books and and doing this stuff? And I'm like, it was so much better. And I mean, at this point, we've had dozens of different coaches at different seasons of our lives, right? To help expedite our learning and our ability to learn and apply those new things that we need to learn at those different times and seasons, and then keep stacking, right? That's how you go forward. And so it's constant and never ending learning and applying, learning and applying, learning and applying. And it's like learning and applying, learning and applying. And so you go up to the top peak, and then we start to apply it, and we kind of go back, right? We go back down that valley to go back up the next big mountain to the next higher peak. And so that's kind of how I see it, is that it's nonstop up and downs, up and downs, up and downs. The goal is for it to constantly be going up.
Yes. I have a question for you too. At what point did you put your money where your mouth is? At what point did you say, you know what, at this point I need to invest in my potential?
Oh man, I was a young leadership dorky. Like I was at 13 years old, I was at seminars on the weekends. Like on Saturdays, I would go to full day Saturday trainings with my mom's network marketing company, at 14 years old. So being able to be surrounded around like personal growth and self-development, like again, at that point, I didn't really know like how I was fully going to apply it. But at that point, I really did become obsessed with self-development books, learning, the 15 Laws of Growth by Maxwell, and that book becoming so pivotal and critical still to this day. It's sitting on my desk at work, because it's something that I reference and I look back onto, many, many times along with many other books. But it's been a great resource of mine. And so again, to pull out full potential, many of us go, "Oh, I don't have potential." That's because you're looking at the mirror at the current person standing here right now. Let me help you understand how to get potential. You go and you pick up a book like the 15, I'm like, which one did I grab? Five levels of leadership, right? And you read it, and you don't just read it. You apply it. Every single day. You make little notes on what those 5 levels are and how do you get to those levels, and you do the things that get you to that next level and the next level and the next level. It's literally, once you understand that life is like a video game and the only way to get to the next levels is to go over the hurdles, but sometimes you don't understand where the traps are when you jump over it and you fall down and you're like, shit, I got to go back to the start again. Yep, I got to learn that one again. Okay, but this time when I get there and I hit that roadblock again, I'm going to understand how to get through that challenge more smoothly because I've been here before and I'm equipped with the right tools to battle through this.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the constant and never ending up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. But we're constantly going up all the time. Right.
It's true. And I think one of the books that I love is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I had to read the book twice to even have my aha moment after what the title was telling me in the first place. And the whole idea of the book is if you allow yourself to think for yourself, you will grow rich. But the problem is we don't. A lot of people have a follower's mindset, So I think that's just a big piece. You have to be able to think for yourself in order to.
Well, I think people misconstrue that title, right? Think and Grow Rich. Oh, it's just that manifestation, right? I just go, I'm going to be rich. 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 That's never going to happen, right? I could sit here and be like, send me a cheeseburger, send me a cheeseburger, send me a cheeseburger. And nobody's sending me a cheeseburger, right? Now, I fully believe in prayer. And I always believe that that's the foundation of where all of my decision making starts in full honest prayer and me giving it up going, hey, Lord, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to accomplish. This is what I want to achieve. But followed with intense amount of action on the things that I need to do daily so that I do achieve that thing. Right? Like if it's like, I need to find a job, it's like, oh, I'm not finding a job right now. God's not listening to me. And it's like, well, how many resumes have you handed out? Oh, I haven't even done it. Have you even put a resume together? No, I don't know where to start. Well, you should start by just maybe asking Google, how do I put a resume together? Like it's that simple sometimes where it's like we build it up into our minds of it being this monumental task to get accomplished. And it's like, just break it down. Just break it down. How do you start to see potential in yourself? Start to read books and apply it to the people around you. Start to apply the knowledge that you know to the people around you. Start to get really clear with what your purpose is, what drives you. What would you do if you weren't getting paid and you could do this thing every single day, all the time? Is that working with horses? Is that working with autistic kids and horses? Is that building ranches? What is that? That will kind of help put you in that direction. And if you don't know what it is, start by going, that's for sure not what I want. And it's typically the opposite of that, right? So it's like, I know what I don't want to do. And that's, I don't want to do manual labor anymore. I did that for 11 years growing up and I didn't want to do it after that. And that's why I'm like, if I don't start learning something new, this is going to be my whole life. And that's not bad at all, right? But I knew my potential was more. And I knew that I had more potential in me, but I didn't know how to do that. That's when I started investing in a coach and going, okay, I need somebody to help me figure out how do I put my growth plan together? How do I put an intentional, intentionality behind these action steps that I want to do so that I can achieve what I want to achieve? So anyways, That's our
Yeah,
chat, dude. You and I could be talking about this shit forever. So I'm
yeah, we
like, it's
can. We
not shit.
definitely can. We definitely can. But hey, that I think most people need to hear. At what point do people go all in on themselves? And to your
Now.
point, start with a book. Start with a book, putting up, start applying some of those things that you're learning in a book. And at some point, you're gonna build up the confidence to say, you know what? I think I'm ready. It's never
And
the
don't
right time.
stop. And don't
Mhm.
stop. Don't stop
Yeah,
learning and applying, learning and applying, learning and applying. No matter how many times you screw up and fail, don't stop learning and applying to your life.
yeah.
And you will you can't help but become more successful in all areas when you do that. So, anyways, thank you guys for tuning in again. This is Matt and Jacques with Breakthrough Live. And again, our goal with this is just to share some of the things we're learning as we're, learning and applying and teaching and applying the different principles of leadership in our lives and in our businesses and with our teams. And so we hope as you guys listen to this that it will spawn ideas for you and things that you can take back. And if nothing more, we hope that you'll be more intentional about your own personal growth. But until next week, Jacques, have a great evening. Don't
Take
stop
care.
chasing
Stay
greatness.
blessed.